Convene this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board. Can I have a board member certify closed session, please?
Madam Chair, I certify to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Ms. Aller?
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. And Mr. Riffle, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
Please
Please
rise.
stand if you're able.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will quickly move on to announcements and superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May is recognized nationally as Mental Health Awareness Month. Throughout our division, schools have been bringing awareness to mental health in a variety of impactful ways. For instance, War Hill High School students offered students the opportunity to sign up for sessions with therapy dogs that are used to create a comforting and supportive environment. Our commitment to the well-being of our students, staff, and community is reinforced through such initiatives. We are proud this evening to recognize our 2024 Support Employees of the Year, and I believe they're all present with us this evening. This special acknowledgement highlights the exceptional efforts and dedication of our staff members who play critical roles in the success of our school division. We look forward to honoring their hard work and commitment to excellence tonight. Please be reminded that all division facilities will be closed on Monday, May 27th in observance of Memorial Day. This closure includes all schools and division offices. We encourage our community to use this time to honor the men and women who have served our country. Regular operations will resume on Tuesday, May 28th. Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes my brief report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. I believe Mrs. Hunley has a report.
So I serve on the Williamsburg-James JCC School Foundation, and we would like to thank them for the beautiful reception that they had for our Teachers of the Year. It was at, I call it the Albie Aldridge Museum, and it was very nice. So at our meeting, we did set our new calendar for next year. Fundraising is started, looking for donors, so if you have money. They would love to have your money. It goes to great causes. We have the teacher store, Teacher of the Year things, all the grants that teachers get. So they have a newsletter that'll be coming out mid-June, and you'll get to see a teacher featured that was helping with facilitating a meeting with other families for children that are hard of hearing or deaf. So that will be in their newsletter. And also, if you're just interested in volunteering and you want to know more about ways to volunteer, then please contact them online. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. Were there any other board member reports?
I have
Ms. Chen?
one, yes.
Okay.
I have the privilege of serving on the Special Education Advisory Committee, and just wanted to say really quick that we had our last meeting, and the meetings that I've attended have been very educational. And I would encourage anybody who has an interest, whether you are a family that has a child with special education needs, or even if you're a family without a child with special education needs. We discuss all sorts of advocacy, and the role of the committee is to advise the school board. So anything that we can get in terms of parent or family or community input is very beneficial to the board and to our administration. And we have an exciting event coming up, the Exceptional Games, June 6th, 10:30 at Jamestown High School. The Special Education Advisory Committee, we will be all taking turns manning cornhole. So there'll be all sorts of events, and it'll be really fun. So we invite anybody who's interested to come and volunteer and to participate.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. All right, we will now move on to recognitions. And I'd like to ask, Cavazos, will you join me at the bottom? I don't think you've been down there yet.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. Tonight we are excited to recognize students, staff, and families for their accomplishments and contributions to our community. First, I would like to invite Mr. Kenny Word to announce the recipient of the RRMM Region 2 Superintendent Scholarship. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kenny Word.
Is this thing on? Yes. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. Again, Kenny Word, Business Development Manager with RRMM Architects. I don't know why we didn't design this school. Anyway, sorry, I got off on a tangent there. So every year I have the privilege of driving around the state giving away money, right? Every year we recognize all of the regional superintendents of the year by giving them a scholarship award, which they pass along to a very deserving student. It is not only our way of giving back to the community, but also recognizing these great educators for all that they do for the students in their respective districts. And of course, as you probably already know, the Region 2 Superintendent of the Year is none other than Dr. Heron. Now, is Claire Bennett in the house?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Claire is the recipient of the scholarship award that Dr. Heron is bestowing to her. Are you going to UVA? The last one I gave away, the student was going to JMU. What's going on?
Oh, JMU. Go Dukes. Sorry.
Take a photo right here.
No Miss Walls tonight, so there's no Miss Walls tonight. Emblem.
Congratulations, Claire. Let's give her one more round of applause. I'd like to continue our recognition tonight of a War Hill High School student. I'd like to invite Aaron Larson and Michael Willen to come forward as representatives of the War Hill High School PTSA. Ms. Larson is the current president, and Mr. Willen is the past president of the War Hill PTSA. Under their leadership, the War Hill High School PTSA was named 2022 to 2024 National PTA School of Excellence. PTA School of Excellence is a recognition program that supports and celebrates partnerships between schools and families to enrich students' educational experience. War Hill is one of 368 PTAs nationwide to earn this distinction. Next, we would like to celebrate the remarkable achievements of our students in the arts through the PTA Reflections program. This program offers students across various grade levels the opportunity to express themselves through multiple artistic categories. And tonight we honor those who have excelled not only at the state level, but also nationally. Please come forward to be recognized as your name is called and remain up front for a group photo. First, I would like to invite Michael Willen, a 12th grader from War Hill High School. Please come forward. Michael has shown exceptional talent, receiving the Award of Excellence in both photography and literature categories in the Special Artist Division at the state level. His works, Beautiful to Be Hopeful and Be Hopeful, have touched many, and we are so proud to recognize his achievements tonight. Congratulations, Michael. Next, we invite Emerson Cork, a 5th grader at Matthew Whaley, to come forward. Emerson received the Outstanding Interpretation Award at the state level and the Award of Excellence at the national level in the photography category for his work, May the Light Shine. His ability to capture and convey beauty through photography is commendable. Congratulations, Emerson. Finally, please welcome Langston Ross Lawrence, a 2nd grader at DJ Montague. Langston has been awarded the Outstanding Interpretation in the Literature category at the state level and the Award of Merit at the national level for his work, Langston's Hopeful Poems. His creative expression and depth at such a young age are truly inspiring. Congratulations, Langston. These students have not only represented their schools with pride, but also demonstrated the power of the arts in fostering creativity and expression. Let us give them one more round of applause as we celebrate their outstanding contributions to the arts. The following student is recognized as an Outstanding Achievement Award recipient from the National Junior Honor Society. Can Braden McFarland from Toano Middle School please come forward? Braden is just one of 500 recipients nationwide of the Outstanding Achievement Award for the National Junior Honor Society, and is just one of 12 from Virginia. Recipients are recognized for their commitment to the 5 pillars of NJHS: scholarship, service, leadership, character, and citizenship. Braden has displayed integrity and compassionate decision-making by demonstrating a service mindset, committing to continual learning and growth, and bettering our community. Included with his recognition, Braden has received a $500 college scholarship. Congratulations, Braden. Next, Roberta Lanham, a CTE teacher at Lafayette High School, was honored with the FCCLA Master Advisor Award at the Virginia Beach State Conference. Distinguished as one of only 6 recipients statewide, this award recognizes advisors who excel in guiding FCCLA chapters, promoting community service and leadership among students in family and consumer sciences. Ms. Lanham dedicates extensive hours to mentoring students in various activities, including community projects at local nursing homes and environmental cleanups. Additionally, she leads initiatives encouraging volunteerism within the school community. Her commitment significantly impacts students and faculty embodying the spirit of the award. Congratulations, Ms. Lanham. Our recognitions conclude tonight by honoring our Support Employees of the Year. The WJCC Support Employee of the Year program recognizes outstanding employees and their integral contributions to the division's success. One support employee from each school and non-school-based department was selected by their peers and colleagues to be honored. We appreciate these employees' dedication to our schools, departments, and most importantly, our students. Though not every support employee could join us this evening, we will announce each recipient in acknowledgement of their wonderful accomplishment. Honorees, please come forward to be recognized as your name is called and remain until all support employees have been named. Audience, please hold your applause until all honorees have been named. From Bright Beginnings, Victoria Soul. Clara Bird Baker Elementary School, Wendy Cranston Segala. DJ Montague Elementary School, Christy Turner. J. Blaine Blayton Elementary School, Julie Bostick. James River Elementary School, Michelle Montoya. Laurel Lane Elementary School, Jonna Toller. Matoka Elementary School, Catherine Rawson. Matthew Whaley Elementary School, Kelly Harris. Norge Elementary School, Elizabeth Thomas. Stonehouse Elementary School, Noah Bell. Berkeley Middle School, Leslie Sale. James Blair Middle School, Celestine Winnigan. Lois S. Hornsby Middle School, Elizabeth Shalusis. Tuano Middle School, Derek Morgan. Jamestown High School, Chris Adams. Lafayette High School, Luz Rivera. Warhill High School, Glenda Aparicio. Central Office, Susan Flynn. Operations, Latana Baudier. Technology, Kathleen Colpetzer. Transportation, Ray Armstead. Please join me in applauding all of these support employees. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. That concludes recognitions this evening.
All right, we will now move on to public comment. Oh, I'm so sorry. I got ahead of myself. I'll give it a minute. We're going to be doing a school spotlight, but I'm going to let the room clear for just a couple more seconds because it's noisy.
The teacher, I'll wait.
Okay. Now we will move on to school spotlight. Tonight we are spotlighting Warhill High School.
Good evening, Madam Chair, esteemed members of the board, and Dr. Herron. I'm joined tonight by Ms. Scotty Boyd, our law and debate teacher at Warhill High School. We are excited to introduce a project spearheaded by our dedicated law and debate students at Warhill High School. This innovative initiative not only showcases their academic growth, but also provides valuable real-world experience in legal proceedings. Our law and debate students work diligently to prepare for this event. The mock trial simulates a real courtroom setting with students taking on the roles of lawyers, witnesses, defendants, and even bailiffs. They spend months researching a specific legal case, developing arguments, and honing their public speaking and critical thinking skills. Through this process, our students have deepened their understanding of the legal system, court procedures, and the intricacies of legal arguments. They've gained valuable experience in public speaking, building confidence and articulation in presenting their arguments effectively. And they collaborated to prepare their case and present it cohesively. This video highlights the hard work and dedication of our law and debate students, showcasing the knowledge and skills they have acquired through their studies. Thank you and enjoy.
Law and debate is an elective. We begin with constitutional law, go to criminal law, civil law, interweaving that with the skills of debate. And it all culminates to a mock trial.
This is case file 2018MT, the state of Mississippi.
I'm one of the lead attorneys. I'm interviewing witness Abigail Dorr, who is the sister of the victim. Like, I'm one of the key witnesses, and that day I'm gonna be her. Like, I have to become her.
So they each get this case and they prepared their arguments from the same dossier.
I'm a lead attorney in a case cross-examining Drake Floyd. In this case right now, he's a really big part that we have to dissect down each time and then also include that in the case.
What we do in the classroom can be mimicked in their own lives.
It sets high standards. It builds a lot of character too, because once you learn a lot of law stuff like this, you can think a lot harder in certain situations and think a lot smarter.
Being confident talking in front of everybody, that's big, and communicating really. Actually, I thought about doing some type of law in college, so this was a pretty good class, and that made me think about what I want to major in.
My favorite thing about the class is how much we talk to everyone, like how close we are, and how we can collaborate.
Oh, my students were so prepared. They executed this trial perfectly. I was very, very proud of how my students rose to the occasion, dressed the part. That is part of the growth within this class, are the skills in public speaking, in debate, in keeping your composure, in thinking on your feet. It's not just the preparation and the notes that you have in front of you.
I was most impressed with how quickly they thought on their feet, and sometimes having to defend an argument that maybe isn't your natural inclination, and being able to look at things from different angles and apply that to any situation, I think is very valuable.
The growth that they see in themselves will carry them into their adult lives.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you, Ms. Newcomb and Ms. Boyd. I know several of our board members participated in that, and they really raved about it too. So that looks amazing. I would have loved that in high school. Now we will move on to public comment, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Donner.
Thank you. It is at this point in our meeting where citizens are invited to address the board. Those citizens desiring to speak have submitted speaker cards to the clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. Speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their names for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. It is the board's interest and desire that all comments are heard and respected. Hence, the citizens are asked to not engage in applauding, verbal outbursts, or any other type of demonstrations during the presentations. Personnel matters are not considered in public meetings, therefore the board requests that all speakers refrain from making reference to specific individuals in any form or fashion. Though the board does not respond to your comments are heard and appreciated. Each speaker is allocated 2 minutes to make their presentation, and the board asks that you respect this time limitation. Also, please be reminded that no time may be yielded to another speaker. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Madam Chair, and my directions are concluded.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner.
Our first speaker is Elizabeth Kane.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. I would like to address the board regarding family life issues. My name is Elizabeth Kane, and I'm a retired music teacher with WJCC schools. I taught a lot of 5th grade students over the years and also high school. And I'm speaking in opposition to the Family Life Committee recommendation that we combine 4th and 5th grade boys and girls for the lessons regarding reproduction and puberty. I just do not feel that children of that age will be comfortable to ask questions about things that they need to know, and I really think they'll be more receptive to the information if they're kept separate. And I also encourage you to please just keep the curriculum the way it is for that level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kane.
Our next speaker is Brian Cooley.
Hello, I'm a JCC resident. Dr. Herron, board members, I would like to thank you, those of you whose decisions are thoughtful and keep staff, students, and faculty as your primary concern, rather than a political stunt to inflict some limited worldview on everyone else. I would also like to share an idea that seems germane, though a little late, to recent controversy. It comes from an early influencer of the woke movement. His name was Jesus Christ. You may have heard of him. When repeatedly asked what was most important, Jesus always replied, love God, of course. But second, and in his own words, equally important, was to love thy neighbor as thyself, regardless of immigration status. Sage advice for people of all beliefs, but for those who claim to follow him, it is the commandment, and not something you can make excuses for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley.
Our next speaker is Andrew Kaysen.
Hello, good evening. I'm Andy Kaysen. I'm a teacher at Jamestown High School and treasurer of WJCEA. Me and many of my teachers are very eager to hear any progress on our request for collective bargaining. If you could provide us with just a little progress report in your board comments, that would mean a lot to the majority of teachers who have signed authorization cards. The main point I wanted to talk about today was bus drivers. Morale is very low. Bus drivers are constantly covering other routes. Families are inconvenienced by delays, and I see my daughter's principal constantly juggling the messages to parents, this route's being late, this route's going to be early, and it's, I know that principal is struggling with the lack of bus drivers like many other families in the district. Bus drivers are amazing. They are educators. They enforce the code of conduct, they manage the kids, and they build rapport. Like when I talk with bus drivers and we share students, it's like I'm talking to a fellow teacher, gaining, insight into how a student is in another environment. They build that rapport, and they do this all while driving a bus. These people are amazing. Dump truck drivers don't have to manage their cargo, and they're paid much better, and I think a lot of our bus drivers are leaving for greener pastures and much more quieter cargo. Bonuses are going to be welcome, but I'm afraid we need to do more bold action. If you recall in the news, Henrico gave raises mid-year. That would probably help stem the loss of more bus drivers. And switching from a 6-hour contract to an 8-hour contract would be very significant. I know one bus driver told me that, first of all, the hours in between the routes are not really their own. They can only do so much. And also, when they have a day off, they get paid for 8 hours, not 6 hours.
Thank you, Mr. Kaysen.
Our next speaker is Walt Cross.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Walt Cross. I'm retired after 40 years or so in public education. An issue of combining the 4th and 5th grades for family life instruction is before the board. I encourage the board not to support or approve this change in the policy. There are several issues regarding the developmental, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and indirectly physical appropriateness of this suggested change. Wherever one may find themselves in the political spectrum, we can all agree that there is an epidemic of anxiety disorders and other mental health issues evident in an increasing number of children and adolescents. And one of the major ingredients in this explosion is that children are presented with information and experiences for which they are not developmentally ready to comprehend and placed in situations that are fraught with emotional and psychological hurdles. The whole concept of human reproduction and the attendant questions, explanations, and enormity of sexuality is difficult at best and should be undertaken in environments in which students are safe and feel protected and not made to feel ashamed. Ashamed not just of the content being discussed, but ashamed due to their position in relation to others. Unfortunately, many children are exposed to information they should not be aware of at ages 9, 10, and 11 through the internet, cell phones, etc. In a classroom discussion, there's no guarantee of what previous information the students may have. That will definitely impact the questions, comments, and responses of others. And although we might like to think that every teacher is uniformly equipped to handle the situations, we know that's not always the case. Boys and girls together in a classroom can be a handful. Ask any 4th or 5th grade teacher, but add in the potential embarrassing comments, gestures, and looks that can accompany an offhand comment, let alone an entire lesson, and the environment becomes unsafe and for many children toxic. Let me ask you to think back to a situation, maybe in elementary or middle school, in which a comment was made to you about your appearance or some perceived insult. My goodness. Think about that and its impact on you, so I ask you not to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. And if you have written comments, you can give them to the clerk and she'll email them, your full comments to us.
Our next speaker is Ryan Shoemaker.
Hello again. So today I'm just here to talk about the Joint Resolution Committee. I think that you guys should just put it on and vote on it and just get it over with, because we've been asking to do it for a long time, and so I think that the sooner it gets done, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schumacher.
Our next speaker is Kara McLean.
Good evening. I'm Cara McLean. I'm a parent in WJCC schools. I'm coming to you tonight on the issue of transparency. It says in Luke 8:17 through 19 that there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. But at the moment, things seem to be hidden from parents and maybe at times from you. Teen material is still available to teach 11 to 12-year-old boys and girls about male and female reproduction and other subjects not appropriate. Some family life material is still not in the school office binders for parents to see. I let the family life administrator know today, for now, that this is not compliant with VA codes and guidelines and town policies. There is also an issue of things not being brought up to parents' attention. Make sure parents are in the loop, as these are their children. Make sure in the future to let parents know the family life material is on the WJCC website and in every school and in central office. Make sure it's a courtesy to parents to let them know that their 6th through 10th grade students are combined in sensitive subjects of puberty, reproduction, learning of reproduction, breast awareness, PMS, testicular exams with boys and girls together for right now. Make sure parents are informed of changes coming up so that that could affect their children, such as the vote to combine the 9 and 10-year-olds in a family life class when they have always been separated. It is not a good idea to teach these children about private parts and body changes with boys and girls together. They may be embarrassed, traumatized, and won't ask questions. I am thankful for all who have said that they are against this already. At least 6 counties do not combine 4th and 5th, and some even separate more. And I ask that you also do this, and I thank you again for all who have said that they're against it. I ask that there be more time and a place given for parents to have their requests and concerns known, not just 2 minutes a month when heads of committees get 30 minutes to speak to the board in work sessions and in public. Give parents a good outlet to speak of their concerns and be heard. Be the best school system in the state, one that other counties will want to emulate. God bless you, Cara McLean.
Thank you, Ms. McLean.
Our next speaker is Jessica Anderson.
Hello, I'm Jessica Anderson. I am both a parent and employee here at WJCC. And I just want to add as well to encourage the board to form this joint committee for collective bargaining resolution with WJCEA. I think this resolution will allow us to have a seat at the table and partner with you as the board and the superintendent to benefit everyone, educators, staff, our families, everyone moving forward. I also wanted to touch on a conversation that continues to be perpetuated by a member of the school board in regards to our EL students. I want to kind of steer away from false claims or vilifying students and families and discuss real concerns and maybe even solutions. I had a conversation with our ESL teachers, and it's come to my attention that we're having trouble addressing communication barriers, educational opportunities, and testing outcomes because ESL teachers are not currently a mobile position. So throughout the division, we see a discrepancy in attendance of ESL students. Some schools have 1:20 ratio, some schools have 1:70 ratio, and some schools have 1:109 ratio. And most of these schools only have one ESL teacher, and they are stationary. They are not being moved around. So even if our positions are fully funded and filled, we're still having some shortcomings because just people reside in different locations, and we have more heavily populated ESL areas. And with that conversation in mind, obviously there's been a lot of controversy around this topic, and I just want to say that, again, I'm thankful for the board addressing it in a very sound manner, but I also feel like one particular board member who was honest about the conversation and honest about what we now know was in an email that was FOIA'd, and was targeted by newspapers, by online media, by community members in this very room last month. I believe she deserves an apology because she was speaking truth to power, and unfortunately other people were misleading her, particularly a school board member. So I believe she deserves a public apology and an apology from a member of this board, and I'd love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Our final comment, our final speaker is Susan Finley.
2 minutes is not a lot of time, so I'm going to talk very fast. The time hasn't started yet, right?
Yes, now it has.
Hello, my name is Susan Finley, and I'm speaking to you this evening as a parent of a high school student. I believe most of us are just trying to do our best, including all of our stakeholders here. Unfortunately, I'm certain that the rollout of the details regarding high school final exams is not our best. Final exams have not occurred in this division since spring of 2019, 5 years ago, and at that time, students only had 4 courses each semester. They were well aware that the final exams at the beginning of the school year. Last time it was referenced on a calendar was the 2019-2020 school year, but this school year, January 28th, the division notified the community there would be final exams, and it would count towards your final grade. This coming out halfway through the school year. February 11th, additional details. Students could be exempt with certain conditions like attendance. This occurred at a point in time when students could have already missed the opportunity and they would be disqualified from any exemption. It's just not equitable. Changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game is not equitable. How many other local divisions have announced that there would be final exams and they would impact your final grade in the third quarter of the school year? Hampton and Newport News give exams, but student and staff know this in August. York no longer gives final exams, and all stakeholders are clear on that. In this district, we're going to give final exams. It's going to impact your course grade, and you're going to learn about it in late January. I wish I understood more about the purpose for the final exams. Some students who struggle with test taking will surely feel the negative impact of unexpected additional exams that could cause them to potentially not graduate. Teachers are also impacted. They are the ones that have to create these final exams and prepare students for those with limited notice. Have these exams been reviewed for consistency, validity, reliability? Will the exams differ with instructors or between high schools? Where's the quality control plan in all of this? If our goal is to improve the rigor and student support success, what's the difference if the stakeholders would...
Thank you, Ms. Finley.
Yeah.
You can give your paper to the clerk if you'd like. Okay, I think that was our final one.
That concludes our public comment.
Okay. We will now move on to our consent agenda. So I will read the list that we will be approving with one vote. Our consent agenda includes item 7.01, approval of financial report and monthly bills and payroll for April 2024. Item 7.02, approval of minutes from April 16th, 24 meeting. Item 7.03, approval of minutes from the May 7th, 24 meeting. 7.04, approval of revisions to policy IGAD, career and technical education. Item 7.05, approval of revisions to policy IKF, graduation. Item 7.06, approval of revisions to policy JFC, student conduct. Item 7.07, approval of creation of policy JGDA, disciplining students with disabilities. Item 7.08, approval of creation of policy JGDB, disciplining students with disabilities for infliction of serious bodily injury. And finally, item 7.09, approval of revisions to JGD/JGE, due process safeguards. Can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. Is there a second?
Good.
Thank you, Mrs. Headley. When you're ready, Ms. Eller.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. All right, we will move on to our action items for this evening. Item 8.01, approval to adopt amended 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 25 through 29.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Ms. Ewan, our Chief Financial Officer, will give us an update this evening on the status of the 5-year capital improvement plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. This evening, I will review what was approved in the school board's capital improvement plan for fiscal year 25 as it compares to what was funded by the localities. The important thing to remember about the capital improvement plan is the first year of the plan is the funded year, and the remaining 4 years are just a plan. Within the school board's approved plan for fiscal year 25, we requested the following projects which have been funded by the localities. HVAC replacement at Matthew Whaley, replacement of the walk-in refrigerator freezer at Norge, division-wide funding for parking lots, sidewalks, concrete repairs, and playground equipment, as well as funding for safety and security items, storm drain repairs, and the bus replacements. Funding for the construction of the pre-K space is only included for the amount of reversion funds from fiscal year 2023, which is $6.5 million. In total, we requested $22.8 million in fiscal year 2025, and the funded amount is $12.6 million. In regard to the construction funding for the pre-K spaces, our estimated construction cost is $42 million, and based on what was funded in the current fiscal year and the amount funded next fiscal year, which again is our reversion funds from fiscal year 23, there is still a shortfall in funding of approximately $6.8 million. We will need to work with our funding partners to close this gap as we get closer to construction. This slide shows the projects that have been removed and not funded next year, which include replacement of pitched roofs at the walk-in refrigerator freezer at Laurel Lane, repainting and replacing flooring at Blayton, replacing the roof at Berkeley, repainting and replacing carpet at Hornsby, and turfing of Cooley Field. Overall, these projects amount to $3.4 million. These projects will be reconsidered during the fiscal year 26 budget process, along with any new requests. The school board approved CIP for fiscal years 25 through 29 was requested for $74.8 million, and the localities have a plan that totals $64.7 million, for a difference of $10.1 million. The majority of this difference has to do with the reduction in the funding for the pre-K space construction in fiscal year 25, as well as the removal of several projects in fiscal year 25. Overall, our capital improvement plan has generally been supported. We are grateful for the support of our funding partners so that we can continue maintaining and improving our facilities. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Riffle?
I think it's more of a comment, but on slide 3, it's for 2 facilities, right? We're talking about the pre-K.
Yes, the pre-K is 2.
Mr. Hosang?
For the items that were removed, I'm just looking specifically at the Berkeley Middle School replacement of the roof and the Laurel Lane replacement of the asphalt roof and replacement of the refrigerator freezer. Are those items that I guess need to be done? Are the roofs falling apart, or is this just something that's like on a standard time frame that we normally do a replacement, and that's what we're just taking out and putting back, or pushing back a year.
I believe it's just part of our standard refurbishment process.
So, Mr. Hussain, we did ask operations to give us some feedback when these projects were being removed about the amount of maintenance that had happened on them during the year and if they could be pushed back by 1 year. All of the major items are in a cycle, either 10 or 20 years, mostly 20.
I mean, this just isn't something that, I mean, obviously needs to be done. It's not falling apart. It's just, this is just normal replacement that we can push back.
Yeah, we try to make the replacements before we run into major issues, and we do maintain them as we go along, absolutely.
Mrs. Donner?
This might be for Superintendent Herron. So as I was watching the Board of Supervisors meeting last week, so what I saw was that in order for them, it sounded like to balance their budget, they took out $3.1 million worth of funding from us, and then $3.4 million worth of funding from their own in order to then give back, I think, a 5-cent credit on their taxes. And so I just want it to be clear for the viewing public around, I think we're being very polite around why there's this $3.4 million that's been pulled out the budget, but to understand from the viewing public that, as I stated, we get our funding from both of our funding partners, and as we are trying to make sure that we are moving forward on projects so that we don't run into an issue with a roof, with refrigeration, that we are, like, these have been in the works and have been in the CIP and us in terms of figuring out how much money we're going to get on a go-forward basis. So it's not like we kind of throw in new things or new requests. And so I guess my long preambles, the question with Dr. Herron is, what conversations did we have with the county? Were we aware that we were on, that all these projects that do support, as I'm looking at these, you know, there's a fair balance between what's in the city and what's in the county. Like, how were we made aware that this was something that's going to happen? Because I think this is the first that, you know, we're having this opportunity to have this as a public discussion, and I was actually quite surprised when I saw the Board of Supervisors do that last week.
Yeah, I think the conversation with the county was very much the impact of these particular projects should they be moved back in the CIP. I am concerned that they're not physically in the CIP at all at this moment in time. Did anticipate them to be moved to a different year and out of the funded year, which is next year. So I am concerned. I think the circumstances are very unusual this year. I think if this were to happen on a regular basis, then our buildings would not look like they look today, which is very well maintained and lovely environment for our students to learn in. So this is unusual at unusual circumstances. I don't think there will be major issues next year, but if this happens again, or we can't put some of these projects back in within the 5-year cycle, I think it'll be detrimental to schools.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Did you raise your hand? Mr. Riffle?
I don't think it's a question, but I can make it into one. I think it just goes back to my initial comment of our funding partners not doing a part of their job. This is capital improvement. This is something you can ask the state to do their part in. When dollars leave our county, we need to ask for it to come back. And there's multiple instances in both of their budgets where they could both be doing this. And I think it's a tool we're not using. And that's something I want to make very public to us, because it is leaving. This money's not coming back, and it's not coming in ways that like help education, which is still the largest share of both of their budgets. So those things make a lot of sense when they come down. So I'm assuming my question would be, how could we better, I guess, advocate, not just as a school board, but, you know, are we having good communication flow that like helps us facilitate those type of needs? Because maybe it's just they don't know how to make a legislative agenda or to advocate to the state in certain ways. Like, what's the missing link, I guess, between this and there?
So the question was about communication. Is there a specific
about what I stated was like how are we not this is not a surprise. This is a 5-year agreement that everyone's very aware of. It's not like these projects aren't known for 10 years. that this is up, and now we're the ones having to be like, let's wait till next year, and then what, as the superintendent stated, that these could not come back, that these are things we could have, that we have projects to do next year, and this is the strongest part of the biennium budget. Like this is the best time to ask for money, and that's up to come. And then next year, the cycle, the General Assembly does not typically give money to localities in that way. So I just don't understand what the thought was of not using that tool. And then next year, there's no increase in revenues for the state. It doesn't really happen in the second year of the biennium. So it's not like we're getting further. It's not going to change. And I think we're going to actually put ourselves behind an 8 ball at this point for some of these projects. And that's my concern is are we just there's a lot more, is the things we're not speaking about that, facilitate something like this breaking down, right? This is maintenance. We're not even talking about curriculum or other things like that, right? This is just how they do business every day. So hopefully, I don't know. It's not a question. It's more a statement, I guess, at this point.
Are you looking to Ms. Ewing for an
No,
answer?
I'm not.
Or are
I'm just
you,
Jesus
is
on
this
the
something
podium,
directed
so.
to the board,
No.
board of supervisors?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that there's a lot of things that need to be done if we're going to keep saying we're doing these things properly. And it's not happening. So.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Just a small question for me. So for fiscal year 25, we're short 10.2 million. 3.4 of that is the projects that have been removed from our CIP. Does that mean the remainder is from the underfunded pre-K
Yes, ma'am.
money? So about 7 million? Just under
6.8.
6.8. Okay. Now, we're still scheduled to break ground on the pre-K centers, or no?
I think, Dr. Kiever, if you want to just give us a status update on, I know we're working through the process of approval now of our special use permits and things.
Yes, ma'am. Earlier in the month of May, the Planning Commission approved the special use permit for both buildings. That will now go to the Board of Supervisors for review and approval during their June meeting. It's probably at about the 75% design stage. Our goal would be to bid the projects in the early fall, if at all possible.
Okay.
So groundbreaking is not imminent, but it is on the horizon.
Okay. And would this shortfall impact the ability to execute that plan as just described by Dr. Kiever?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to ask for a motion if there are no other questions for Ms. Ewing. Anyone have a?
I move to adopt the amended 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 29 in the amount of $64,662,280.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hundley. Ms. Aller?
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hundley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
No, and I'm going to say why I'm voting no is that I do believe in what we are asking for. I take issue with number one, that the Board of Supervisors was really one of the largest advocates for us to build the pre-K space. And so now that we are at the point of doing that, we are now in a battle to be able to have the funding to do that. Number two, we don't have the ability to levy taxes as a school board, so we are at the mercy of our funding partners to be able to fund things. And so I've heard many times it's being said from the Board of Supervisors that they give us money and it's up to us to be able to use that money as we see fit. However, there are projects and things that we would pay for if we had the ability to levy taxes. So we are really in a partnership with them, and so I find it pretty frustrating that if we are in this partnership and we have to go to them with our hat in hand asking for money all of the time when there are opportunities to make sure that we are delivering the quality and the type of school division they want us to deliver, and we don't have the funding to be able to do that, and there isn't that kind of conversation around a more forward-leaning conversation around what is and is not going to be funded. I think that's unfair. So my no vote is just on principle, not on the content.
And Mrs. Ortega.
Aye. We'll move on to item 8.02, approval of personnel actions. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle, for the second. When you're ready.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. Moving on to item 8.03, approval of personnel appointment book. Can I have a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move to approve the annual personnel appointment book for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Is there any discussion? Okay, Ms. Aller?
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. Item 8.04, approval of pay scales and classification plan. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the pay scales and classification plan for fiscal year 2024-2025 as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to give it to Mrs. Hunley. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Aller.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. Item 8.05, approval of budget transfer request. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the budget transfer request of $500,000 from instructional salary and benefits to operations and maintenance for utilities.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr.
Second,
Riffle,
yeah.
thank you. Any discussion?
This is just, I guess, this is just a clarifying question. This is just like balancing of our budget. Like we're trying to use the funds that we're given our discretion to use it in better ways in our division. Like we talked about this previously. I just want to mention it again.
Ms. Ewing, you want to speak to the item and why we're transferring the funds on this occasion? Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. We projected out utilities for the remainder of the year, and we need about 500,000 transferred over to utilities.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing.
Okay. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. 8.06, approval of revisions to the 2024-25 school year calendar. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the revisions to the 2024-2025 school year calendar as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang. Any discussion? Okay. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
And Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. 8.07, approval of the advanced placement chemistry textbook and textbook materials adoption. Can I have a motion?
I recommend the adoption of the advanced chemistry textbook and textbook materials from Savas Pearson as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Riffle. No discussion, I'm assuming. Ms. Aller?
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. And item 8.08, approval of American Sign Language textbook and textbook materials adoption. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the adoption of the American Sign Language textbook and textbook materials from Dawn Press as presented.
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Hosang and Mrs. Hunley. Ms. Aller?
Mr. Hosang.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Mrs. Ortego.
Aye. And last but not least, item 8.09, approval of WJCC Family Life Education Community Involvement Team's recommendation. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? No one's gonna.
Well, I'll move, but we'll discuss.
Yeah.
Yes. So I move to approve WJCC, I move to approve the WJCC Family Life Education Community Involvement Team's recommendation as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley.
I'll second for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mrs. Henley.
I am not in favor of combining the boys and the girls. And personally, as a child who was parent opted me out of family life, which is a parent's right. My parents were doing what they felt was best. As a parent 10 to 12 years ago that did have my children take the family life, I did take the opportunity to go to an elementary school and see the curriculum, and I was offered the binder or the computer, and I looked through it in the binder, and I have no problem with what is being taught to 4th and 5th graders. However, I do not feel that it is appropriate for children, especially with some of the topics girls are just learning about for the first time themselves, and the same thing with young boys that are learning these things for the first time themselves. And whereas I know that they mentioned some of the rationale was students can develop empathy for the changes and challenges experienced by another gender, and the other one was students practice communicating with each other on sensitive topics. Even as a society coming out of the pandemic, and adults haven't always modeled, I feel, empathy for different topics or practice communicating well. And I just don't think our students are at that point right now where they can take on that big responsibility. So I will say again, I have no problem with what is being taught. I just don't think this that young boys and young girls at this personal, something that's very personal to them and something they're learning about the first time in 4th and 5th grade is appropriate to combine them.
Thank you, Mrs. Henley. Any other comments, board members? Mr. Riffle?
I was most recently a 4th and 5th grader, and I actually took this curriculum, and I think it's very appropriate to keep it the way it is right now. From our current discussion in the last meeting, I didn't see a physical impact and why this would really change. The school nurses who were polled and the recommendation from the superintendent, there was only one, and they were a parent who, and they didn't see. I was trying to see if there's anyone who was actually positively going to send us a comment that they would. I got 50 emails that said they did not want this, and I got no emails that said they did. And so there was almost no lobby for people who wanted it besides the committee. So I appreciate the committee's work on this, but I think it's fine the way it is. So.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Mrs. Donner?
I concur with my other board members. I have had conversations with parents, particularly of children who are either gender nonconforming or non-binary, and so I'm very aware that us making a decision to keep the kids separated does put a potential strain in it, and that child in an uncomfortable position, and I'm sensitive to the families for whom that will make it an uncomfortable day for that child. I also think that being the mother of a 4th grader who just went through this, there are, as is mentioned, the girls are learning things and the boys are learning things from the first time. And so I'm also sensitive to providing a safe space for that to happen. And even in the recommendations that were given to us about the offering opportunities for gender split groups at lunch or in a small work group with the nurse, while that seems like it's a viable option, I think it is, many of these kids, you have one shot for them to ask the questions, and I think to ask them to go into another room or to give up their lunch period to continue to discuss these things, I don't think is realistic. So I am not, and I appreciate the work of the committee and the rationale. I'm just not ready to vote yes at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner. Any other comments? Okay, I will also say that I agree with what's been said here tonight already. I won't repeat what has been said because I agree with it. But I also want to add it, for me, it came down to an additional concern that at such a young age, 9 and 10, we are still teaching children that they have control over their own body autonomy, that when they are uncomfortable or they say no, that is absolutely the way it should be. And when we put kids then in a situation that will feel uncomfortable for them and then tell them suddenly, oh, but this shouldn't make you uncomfortable, you should suppress that or ignore that, I think at such a young age, that could send a very mixed message, something that older children, even if they are uncomfortable, can distinguish between something that's awkward because it just is and something that is unsafe. So that is an additional concern that I have with this. So if there are no other questions or comments, Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley.
No.
Mr. Riffle.
No.
Dr. Cavazos.
Absolutely no.
Ms. Chen.
No.
Mrs. Donner.
No.
Mr. Hosang.
No.
Mrs. Ortega.
No. All right, we will now move on to item 9.01, an update on fiscal year 25 operating budget. And I believe Mrs. Hunley wants to read a statement.
As a member of the school board of the Williamsburg-James City County, I acknowledge that I may have an interest in the fiscal year 25 school budget because my husband is an employee of the WJCC schools. However, I believe that I am able to participate in the consideration of and the vote on the budget fairly, objectively, and in the public interest.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Dr. Herron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Ewan is back up again to give us an update on the operating budget. We are not in the position to have all of the information to vote on this budget tonight, but we felt it was very important to give the board and the public an update of where we are. Thank you, Ms. Ewing.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good evening again. Earlier this month, James City County and the City of Williamsburg adopted their budgets for fiscal year 25. While the state has also passed a budget, the official calculation tool has not yet been released, so we do not know our final state revenue. It may be as late as May 30th before we have that information. This evening, I will provide an update on our budget based on information that we know from the localities and the estimation tables that have been provided by the state. This table shows the estimated impact for us from the approved state budget, which is a decrease in funding of approximately $390,000 as compared to the General Assembly's approved budget. This is primarily related to the changes in the state sales tax of the final budget. This slide shows a comparison of revenue from the school board approved budget and the current estimated revenue for fiscal year 25. James City County revenue is $1.5 million less than requested, while the City of Williamsburg is about $32,000 more than requested. State revenue is estimated to be $289,000 less. After review of our state revenue, there is one category related to special education funding that we are increasing by $100,000 based on the prior 3 years of actuals. That is why the change is different than what I shared on the previous slide. Lastly, we have reviewed our current year interest revenue and proposed raising it by $175,000, which is the change that is reflected in the other revenue category. Overall, based on the localities' approved budgets and the estimated state funding, we believe we are looking at a reduction in our overall budget of $1,589,500. Before I share the proposed expenditure adjustments, I wanted to remind everyone of the initial aggressive adjustments that we made early on in our budget process in an effort to reduce our original funding request. It includes an overall reduction of 28 FTEs amounting to approximately $1.2 million and a reduction in central office department budgets of $300,000 for an overall initial adjustment of approximately $1.5 million. Outlined here are the proposed expenditure adjustments to balance the budget, which include a VRS rate reduction in both our group life insurance and health insurance credit rates that was just approved as part of the state budget last week, which will yield a savings of $285,000. Our insurance renewal for workers' compensation came in less than we anticipated, for a savings of just under $126,000. We've reviewed the curriculum and instruction budget and have purchased items in the current fiscal year that were included in next year's budget for high school band instruments, elementary school recorders and music books, and elementary school handwriting materials are included in the literacy materials approved by the board last month. Overall, this will be a reduction of just under $123,000. We recently learned that we are receiving the grant for the elementary security guards again next year, so no funding will be needed as part of the operating budget, which amounted to $172,000. Lastly, we propose balancing the remainder utilizing attrition savings for approximately $884,000. These adjustments will balance our expenditure budget with the estimated revenue budget. And that concludes the update on the operating budget. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
That's good.
This time? No? I just want to say thank you to you and your team and to Dr. Herron. We are in a tight spot and our clock is ticking. Ideally, we would have approved our final budget tonight, which we're not able to do primarily because of the state calc tool that has not been given to us yet. And we do have to have exact numbers when we take a vote. So I also want to point out that this board and the administration have really leaned hard towards finding reductions. I mean, superintendent and Ms. Ewing and her team found reductions before we even approved our budget. And then now that we know that it's been underfunded, we all agree that we really want to do the best we can for our teachers and our staff, and we want very much to move forward with the budget that we approved. And so I just want to point out that a lot of effort has been made to do that. Some of the things that Ms. Ewing just pointed out that happened to go in our favor in these just last few days and weeks, we're getting lucky on that we're finding this money. So it's not that we knew we had this money all along and just didn't bother to account for it or just asked for something we didn't have. We did not know a lot of these items that happen to go in our favor right now. So that being said, we are digging and we are looking and we are trying to be the best stewards possible with the money that our funding partners give us and grant us, and we are trying to do the best for our teachers and staff who we greatly value and want to do the best for. So that's just a sort of summary of what this update is from a board perspective, and I thank you very much for all the countless hours of hard work that has gone into this. Thank you. All right, we're at the end. Board member comments. Mr. Riffle, can I start with you tonight?
Sure thing. Well, I just want to say thank you to the advocacy for all the people who spoke about the family life curriculum, and just it's important to hear from the taxpayers and the people who care about our students. It's important to me, and I think the board here, I speak for myself, but I think all of us share that. In my visits, I went to Jamestown High School for a choir concert. That was pretty cool. I haven't seen a choir concert since I was in high school, and it was just good to see people in tuxedos and black dresses and stuff, and singing their hearts out and having a good time and celebrating their seniors and the inductees to Tri-M and things like that. So it's great. I also went to War Hill for Mrs. Rosh's Spanish class, art judging. A couple of students or other board members have done that. I saw the superintendent there. It was a good day. It was a good Friday to hang out and to hear from students speaking Spanish and just kind of getting towards the end of the year. So I just want to say again, thanks again to Ms. Ewing. And I think even though we don't have the calc tool, I think there are some things that we can point to the state that actually are the reasons why we're underfunded. And I think people could be asking themselves, like, why are we underfunded? Like we're talking about increases in revenue from the state. We have a lot of money that's they keep saying surplus, which I think it's important to kind of say that there are things that they want to spend that stuff on, by priorities by the chambers and the governor themselves. And I just want to point to kind of how we got here to an extent. The budget that the General Assembly agreed to is largely the same as it was in March when they left. except it takes out some revenue creating programs like RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, a couple of other, things like a energy bank created up in Nova, and things that kind of deal with data centers and things like that, taking so much money from, or taking a lot of energy from the grid. They pay into certain systems to kind of pay for the infrastructure and things like that, and those things now are removed from the agreement that the compromise came through, and that's where our shortfall is from. And things are supposed to be generating revenue are no longer doing that, and so there's things you have to pay for that the state requires them to do, from the Clean Economy Act and a couple other larger bills that are passed in 2020. So you have to then pay out of the pocket instead of paying for these programs that create revenue for those programs, and that's a detriment to education. I mean, that's really what it comes down to here at the local level and across the other jurisdictions who will be seeing similar things. I mean, if you look at the news, like Fairfax isn't raising their teacher salaries, and Henrico is deciding what they're doing. Like some of the largest divisions who typically kind of lead the state in some of these decisions are struggling to kind of get this calculus, understand why they're not receiving some funding. So I think it's just important that we advocate for the right things and understand when we pass laws and we do things, there are legal obligations to kind of still pay those things no matter what. And so these programs that are created by commissions or by stakeholder groups, they're important for us to keep in mind when we create budgets. And we have people who sit at the negotiating table and they're willing to remove revenue creating things to get to a point where they can agree, and that's not a great thing as a taxpayer or anybody who sits on these boards. It's kind of just like, wow, that's disappointing to an extent. And so I think I'm just kind of annoyed as somebody who works there and somebody who wants to bring it back home for our team here. It's just disappointing to feel like we didn't do our hardest work. I think we kind of just leaned into some politics, and it's not really because, like I said, there are things that we have to pay for. Like there's sea levels are rising, so there's resiliency projects across Hampton roads that cost money, and the things that the Clean Economy Act requires the state to do, and that's it's like the tune of $129 million, from my understanding, that the RGGI would have created that revenue, and it doesn't do that. So that's where your money is going. That's money that could be going to education, and that's just one of the instances. There's I think like 32 instances where those things are happening. So I just want to make that very clear that it's not us doing these things. It's our partners at the top, and we're just kind of where the rubber meets the road here. So.
Is that it? Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Mr. Hossain?
Thank you. Since Ms. Hunley's my board mentor, I'm going to steal a play out of her playbook, and I brought some programs of events I've attended for the past 2 weeks, and most of the other board members have too. But since our last meeting, we had a ceremony and I want to congratulate our WJCC Teachers of the Year recipients. We are very thankful for your contributions to our students and in making a difference in their lives. Second issue is Mr. Riffle and I attended the Career Selection Day for the New Horizons students. This is the day when they receive their official offers of employment from various employers. There were 20 employers offering positions to over 100 students at that night who are now starting their new and maybe first jobs soon after graduation. If you don't know what this is similar to students signing their letters of intent to attend and play sports at a college, so it marks a huge milestone in these students' lives. There were 16 students from WJCC who received offers of employment, and I congratulate all of them and all of the students for taking the next big step in their lives. The next event I attended was New Horizons Teacher of the Year banquet. And again, they were honoring those teachers who made a huge difference in the lives of their students. It was a great event where the teachers were honored for their contribution to their students and in preparing them for the life after school. And for my last event, Ms. Chen and I had the opportunity to tour the operations division yesterday to see just a part of what their life is like. And I think Mr. Snipes, the director for operations, was feeling a bit left out recently when we were all visiting different schools and no one had visited operations yet. So it was great to go visit. It was great to go see him and his staff and what they do. And hopefully we'll be able to implement some of the ideas that he has for operations in the near future that he told Ms. Chen and I about. And I want to give the previous board kudos for getting air conditioning into the shop area of the operations. They told us that in the summertime it easily gets up, it to about 100 degrees inside the shop area. So it was very good that it was air conditioned for the employees. And again, I want to thank Mr. Snipes for the tour, and hopefully other board members will get a chance to tour your facility and enjoy your historical displays. And finally, I want to touch on something that I've raised before, and I've received recent inquiries on, and that is regarding our school attendance policy. I completely understand and agree with the premise of needing children in school in order for them to properly be taught. I also understand that some children need to be monitored for their attendance, but we have to use common sense in dealing with this issue, and we have to trust the parents when they are excusing their children from school. We've had parents talk to us about their children missing school due to a parent's military duty or the child's non-school related extracurricular activities, and these days would be counted as unexcused unless they submitted a waiver requesting an excusal. Now, if a parent provides a note notifying the school of their child's absence, that should be good enough for us. And we shouldn't force parents to jump through these extra hoops, having them ask for an excusal. Now, if the child is not performing well or the excusals are becoming chronic, then the school has a duty to step in and do something. But if the child is succeeding in school and the parents authorize that excusal and it's not a chronic issue, and I believe the days should not be held against the child or the family or force the family to request a waiver so that the absence isn't held against the child. Virginia law says that parents have the fundamental right to make decisions for their child's education, and I think we need to remember that on this issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein. Mrs. Hunley?
Okay, I will sum up this month that Williamsburg's Got Talent. I'm not going to say who I went to what with because I leave people off and then I feel bad about it. But I didn't get to go to Berkeley, any of their musical events or War Hill. There were so many musical events scheduled on the same nights, had to pick and choose, and I wish I could clone myself. But we have some amazing, talented students. The young man, Braden, that came up and got the award from Toano, they played a trick, like I went to Toano's thing, and they had there was a box that said no cell phones and gum, and these kids were chewing gum, and they were on their cell phones, and they were getting ready to perform, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why are they doing, like, do they know that? And it was all a prank. So the teacher went up and said, collect their cell phones, get the gum, and then she walked out. She says, that's it, I'm done. And she walked off, and I thought it was real. And then Braden came down, and he went, and then he conducted the whole song. He did and it was a joke. So he's got talent. And when Miss Boyd talked about that, the pretend court, there was a girl, Maddie. She also played in Peter and the Starcatcher, the redhead, curly red. If I needed a lawyer, a pretend lawyer, I could hire her. She was that good. I mean, she was believable. So they have talent. And all the art awards we've gotten, and just to see the kids go from December to what they can do now is just amazing. And I'll have to shout out to Mr. Landers and technology. We vote on stuff a lot of times with technology, and that's not my strong suit. Well, the posters that they were making for the Day of the Dead, which will be on October 17th, you'll hear more about that, were done on Canva. So we approved Canva, and now I got to see what Canva can do through the posters. So that was exciting. And let's see. Yes, thank you to all the citizens that came out, and anytime we get to recognize people and shine a spotlight on them, it's important. And I'm looking forward to other spotlights, and I know we heard a lot about bus drivers, and I would just love for them to have a moment where we show the love to them somewhere in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Dr. Cavazos?
Well, I was hoping to go last because I was going to be brief. So, let me just make a few comments tonight, please. Thank you. I want to offer congratulations to all the recipients of the awards tonight, and especially to the Teachers of the Year. Truly appreciate everybody's really hard work. Somebody already mentioned about the new play, Dia de Muertos, which is going to be on the 17th of October. It's a nice, seems to be really going to be a nice event. And I think it's another example of the school division's commitment to diversity. And then finally, I'm sure I know whether or not the Family Life Education Program is a requirement by the VDOE, but if a student can opt out, I don't see why the division should opt out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Ms. Chen?
I would just briefly mention my visit that I really enjoyed. Thank you, Mr. Snipes, for our visit to operations. I just really appreciated all of the history and feeling a sense of connection to the school division. So I just wanted to shout out and say a special thank you to Mr. Snipes for that lovely visit, and also to everybody that we met that day, from everybody who works behind the scenes for logistics and maintenance, very early mornings, very late nights, everything that happens before and after school, and during schools, the nutrition, transportation, safety, cleaning. So yeah, that was a great visit.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Ms. Donner?
Thank you. I just want to follow up on my comments about the CIP as well as just the budget overall. You know, it is it's just really expensive to run a school division. I think as taxpayers, I was a taxpayer in James City County for over 11 years. I'm a taxpayer in the city now, and we are, you know, one of the crowning jewels is our school system. And I think as we are pushing forward, there are lots of different requirements and pulls on funding from our partners as well as for ourselves. But I just, you know, as a populace thinking through, when you think about even from a moral perspective of needing to educate children in buildings that are well functioning, where we have teachers who are want to be here and who can afford to be here. As I was watching the Board of Supervisors meeting, there was one supervisor who talked about how this, from when he started here many years ago, it was a town of about 40,000 people in the county, and it's now up to 70 or 80. And the cost of the infrastructure to support that, not only from our sewer systems and trash and all of that, but also from a school system, right? It is growing. We are a college community, we are a retirement community, but we're also a community that has 11,000 school-age children that we are responsible for educating, and that is growing. We are a destination community for many of our military that come as they are stationed around here. And I think just as we are having these conversations, whatever is happening between the city and the county, you know, this board, we are responsible for continuing to educate children and continuing to educate children for the foreseeable future. And so that requires investments now, and to really making sure that we are having that partnership in those conversations with our funding partners about what is being chosen to be funded, what is not, and understanding that I'm sure if this school board didn't have to go with hat in hand to our localities to ask for money every year, we wouldn't do that. We would love to be able to control our own destiny, and we don't. And so that is one of the reasons why we are constantly asking. I think there's also been some kind of rhetoric around, you know, the school board is given, you know, $96 million or over $100 million from our funding partners. It's up to them to spend. But I think we have to, again, be intellectually honest and look back at the years where we didn't fund increases for teachers, where their salaries were held flat or 1%, where we had to make other adjustments in 2008 around how we funded and gave money to some of our more seasoned teachers, and those continue to have ripple effects. So yes, it's a lot, and we're asking for money to increase salaries for teachers and staff every year, and we're also playing catch up. And as we've said, I think for at least the last few years, we are still far behind. And so this isn't a greedy school board. This is a school board that is, you know, dealt with the hand of the state constitution of Virginia that doesn't allow us to levy taxes. And so then we are in a position where we have to constantly ask for money to be able to deliver the kind of quality education that everybody in this community then brags about, that then uses to sell their homes, and their home values are based on. And so there's just a lot of partnership that needs to happen there. So those are my comments just around CIP and his budget as we continue to move forward, and hoping that our work with the Board of Supervisors as well as with the city continues to be one that's amicable and that we all have that shared investment of the quality of our schools. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Donner. And I will conclude by being as brief as possible. I want to, again, congratulate all the awardees tonight, especially support employees, and then Teacher of the Year. We didn't have them here tonight, but we had a whole separate celebration for them a couple nights ago, and it was very lovely. And we just so appreciate not just the teachers and support employees who are award-winning, because everyone's valuable, but we just appreciate all the hard work that goes into everything that they do for the students, for each other. A lot of, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, but a lot of the stories about the support employees who are nominated for their award were just simple acts of kindness that they didn't expect to get recognized for, encouragement for their colleagues and for students, a willingness to jump in wherever needed, to do things they didn't think they could do when they were asked to do them, and then they took off with them and excelled. So I was inspired by a lot of the stories from support employees, and I know my board colleagues were as well. And of course, yeah, our teachers are phenomenal, and we want to do everything we can to keep them here. We do value them, and as Mrs. Donner said, we are dealt the hand that we're dealt. We are trying to be fiscally responsible and also as forward thinking as we can be. And we also receive some of the least amount of money from the state in comparison to our neighboring school divisions. So we have an uphill battle on multiple fronts. And so we are hoping this process isn't quite done, but we are hoping to get the best outcome possible once it is done. I want to thank everyone that came out and spoke tonight. I do always feel bad for the people that can't quite finish, but I have to be fair and cut them off. But we do appreciate everyone's comments and the time and the effort it takes to come out on a Tuesday night and sit here for a while. I appreciate everyone that spoke about family life. I mean, that's been taken care of now. But I want to reiterate that parents can see everything that is in the curriculum for every grade level. It's available in the schools. They have a right to see every single lesson, and they can opt their kids out of everything or individual lessons. So that just make sure that is clear and front and center. And then finally, I will just conclude by saying we appreciate all the effort that is going into collective bargaining, and the board has been informing itself on various aspects and ramifications of collective bargaining. We are meeting with people that we need to learn from, and we are still in deliberation. So that is my brief comment on that. So now we'll move on to upcoming events. We will be attending the WJCC retirement celebration on May 30th at 5 p.m. in the Matoka Woods Room at the School of Education, College of William & Mary. We will be attending the GED ISAEP completion ceremony on June 5th at 5 p.m. at Lafayette High School. And many of us will be attending the WJCC Schools 2024 Exceptional Games on June 6th at 10:30 a.m. at Jamestown High School. Upcoming meetings. We have a closed session followed by a work session and action items on June 4th. Closed session begins at 4 p.m. Work session begins at 4:30. Both are in room 300 of the annex of the School Board Central Office. Next, as a closed session on June 18th at 5:30 p.m. in room 300 of the annex, followed by a regular meeting, also June 18th at 6:30 p.m. here in James Blair Middle School Gymnasium. And we will also have a special call meeting on June 27th at 8:15 a.m. in room 300 of the annex, just so we can continue to approve personnel issues throughout, in between meetings. And that is it. With that, this meeting is adjourned.